I went to college in a small town most people have never heard of. It had a beautiful campus, lots of greenery, and a massive library that looked like something out of a Gothic novel. The kind of place where it always felt cold, even in the summer. I loved that library. It had old wooden shelves that reached the ceiling, spiral staircases, and these old lamps with green glass shades. I used to go there to study late at night, mostly because it was quiet and because I didn't get along with my roommates. That's where I first saw her. It was around 11:30 p.m. I was in the philosophy section on the third floor, where nobody ever went. I noticed someone sitting alone at one of the long tables, wearing a long, pale dress. Her hair was black, straight, and reached her shoulders. She looked up at me, no smile, just this calm, blank expression. I gave her a polite nod and went back to my books, but every now and then, I'd glance up, and she'd still be looking at me. Not reading, not writing, just staring. Eventually, I packed up and left, feeling a bit uncomfortable but not scared. I figured she was just one of those quiet, intense types. But I started seeing her more often after that, every night in different parts of the library, but always sitting alone, never talking, never reading, just staring at people. One night I asked the librarian about her. "Who?" she said. "The girl with the black hair and white dress. She's always here late at night." The librarian frowned. "We close at 10 on weekdays. No one's allowed in after that." I told her I'd seen the girl more than once, always past 10. She didn't say anything else, just gave me a weird look and went back to stamping books. The next night, I stayed again, just to see if she'd show up, and she did. Only this time, she wasn't sitting. She was standing at the end of the aisle I was in, her head tilted slightly, her hands at her sides, staring right at me. I tried to act like I didn't care, but I couldn't concentrate. Eventually, I stood up and walked toward the exit, pretending to take a call. When I glanced back, she was gone. I didn't sleep that night. A couple days later, I brought it up with a guy in my sociology class who was kind of into ghost stories. "Oh," he said, "you've seen her too?" I froze. "What do you mean too?" He told me he'd seen the same girl in the library during his first year, and according to him, she wasn't alive, at least not anymore. He said there was a rumor that back in the early 2000s, a student had a breakdown during finals and hung herself in the library's attic, the part that's locked now and marked for staff only. Apparently, no one talked about it. The college kept it quiet, but ever since, people had seen her, always at night, always staring. He said if you stare back too long, she gets closer. I tried to laugh it off, told myself it was just a story, but then something really messed up happened. I fell asleep one night in the library. I didn't mean to. I was just exhausted from back-to-back classes. I woke up in total silence, and for a second, I didn't know where I was. And then I heard it, breathing, right next to me. I turned my head slowly, and she was there, sitting in the chair beside mine, so close our arms were almost touching. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. She leaned toward me and whispered something I'll never forget. "You don't belong here." Then she stood up and walked toward the back wall, the one with no door, and she disappeared, right into the wall. I ran out of there and never stayed past 9 again. But it gets worse. About a week later, campus security found a freshman unconscious in the attic of the library. No one knew how he got in. The door was always locked. When they woke him up, he just kept repeating the same phrase. "She's still here." I haven't seen her since then, but even now, if I'm near that building late at night, I get this feeling, like someone's watching from the upper windows. And sometimes, if you go to the third floor and stand real still, you can hear footsteps on the floor above you, the floor that's supposed to be empty. I want to share something that happened to me back in college, something I've never told many people. Not because I forgot, but because even now, it makes my skin crawl. It started during my second year of college. I'd moved out of the dorms and found a cheap off-campus apartment with another student, a guy named Rahul. We weren't exactly friends, just two people trying to save money. The apartment was an old two-bedroom place above a closed tailor shop. The rent was suspiciously low, and the landlord was too eager to get us in. Looking back, that should have been a red flag. The place smelled like dust and old fabric, and the walls were paper thin. But it was quiet, or it seemed that way at first. About 2 weeks after we moved in, things started to get weird. I'd hear footsteps in the hallway late at night, not from Rahul's room but from outside mine. Sometimes they'd stop right at my door. I assumed he was just getting a glass of water or pacing while talking on the phone. But when I asked him, he denied it every time. He was getting weirded out too. One night, he told me he'd heard whispering in the living room like two people talking, but when he got up to check, no one was there. We laughed it off, told ourselves it was just old building creaks or maybe voices from the street echoing weirdly. But the nights kept getting worse. There was a third room in the apartment, smaller than the others and always locked. The landlord said it was just a storage room and not part of our lease. We didn't press it. One night, though, I woke up to the sound of that door creaking open. Now remember, it was always locked. I got out of bed, heart pounding, thinking maybe someone had broken in. I grabbed a heavy textbook, my only weapon back then, and crept down the hall. The door was wide open. The room inside was pitch black. I reached in to flip the switch. No light. Dead bulb. So I used my phone flashlight, and what I saw made me drop the book. It wasn't a storage room. It was a child's bedroom. Old toys. A tiny bed with faded cartoon sheets. Drawings taped to the walls. Everything covered in dust. Like no one had been in there for years. But the strangest part, there were tiny footprints in the dust on the floor, leading toward the open door, toward me. After that night, everything escalated. Rahul started acting distant. He'd stare off at nothing, mutter to himself, and barely eat. I asked if he was okay. He said he kept seeing something in the mirror. A girl. He said she wasn't like a ghost, not floating or glowing, just watching, standing in the corners, never blinking, sometimes behind me. I wanted to get out of there. I really did. But midterms were coming, and I couldn't afford to break the lease. One night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of crying. Not Rahul. It was a child. Soft, muffled sobs coming from that room again. I ran down the hallway. The door was shut this time, locked again, but the crying kept going. Then I noticed something scratched into the wood near the handle. Fresh scratch marks, like fingernails. The crying stopped instantly when I touched the knob. Behind me, something whispered, "Don't open it." I turned around, but no one was there. A few days later, Rahul was gone. His room was empty. No clothes, no bag, just gone. I called everyone, his family, the police. They thought he just dropped out. But I knew better. He wouldn't leave like that. That night, I had a dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. I saw him sitting in that little child's bed, his eyes wide open, just staring at the wall. His lips were stitched shut. Behind him, a small girl stood with her hands covering her eyes. I woke up drenched in sweat. When I looked toward my bedroom door, it was wide open. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my stuff that morning and left. Didn't even wait for daylight. The landlord never answered my calls. The building was boarded up within a month, and when I went back to check months later, the shop downstairs was gone too. No trace, like the place had never existed. Sometimes I still dream about that room, that child's bedroom. Sometimes I hear the crying again, far away, like it's behind a wall I can't find. And sometimes when I'm looking in the mirror, I catch a glimpse of Rahul, just for a second, watching me. It started my first semester at college. I was assigned a single dorm room, small, cramped, but it was all mine. I got lucky, I guess. They told me the previous student left mid-semester for personal reasons. No one really talked about it. The room felt off from the moment I moved in. It had that stale, heavy air, like no one had opened a window in months. I figured I'd clean it up, make it my own. No big deal. A few nights in, I started hearing scratching. Not loud, just faint, like fingernails brushing against drywall. I thought it was the room next door. Thin walls, old building, probably a rat or something. Then, one night, I heard whispering. It was around 3 a.m. I was half asleep, and I could have sworn I heard someone say, "Why did you come back?" I froze. It felt like the voice was inside the room, but when I turned on the light, nothing. I even checked under the bed, in the closet. Empty. The next day, I told my RA. He looked uncomfortable, said it was probably just stress and sleep deprivation. Then he paused and asked me something weird. "Have you been keeping the closet door closed at night?" I didn't know how to answer that. It was an odd question, and I didn't think much of it until it happened again. Except this time, the closet was open when I woke up. I always closed it before bed. Always. But that night, it was wide open, and there was something inside. A piece of paper folded neatly on the floor. It just said, "You weren't supposed to take this room." I packed my stuff that morning and moved to a friend's couch. I didn't go back. A few weeks later, I ran into one of the older custodians on campus. I asked him what happened to the last student who had my room. He looked at me for a long time and said, "They found his phone recording all night. The footage showed him sleepwalking." Except he wasn't alone. Someone, or something, was standing in the closet the whole time. They never figured out how it got in, or if it ever left.